Recording is on.
Okay, so just confirm my screen is visible. So I will go ahead because I just reconnected from the another network.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
So today what we are going to learn is first in the last session we are creating the namespace, but actually I was using the correct just syntax was wrong that I was using namespaces, but I have to just use kubectl create namespace. So that was the mistake, and so today first we are going to create a namespace, and whatever the pods we are going to create, we are going to create that pod is in this namespace. Okay, and in the last session we are talking about the scheduling or node selectors, right? Like when we have to create a node port service, so this service is means which pod should which pod are applicable for this service. Okay, so what we are doing is we have created a node selector, and then we have matched that row node selector in the while creating our service. So let me just show you the last Eml file, so you will relate it with today's session. So here we have this selector match labels app colon nginx, and I mentioned that this template metadata labels and this match labels must be same. Okay, if it should not be like you have given a different match label over here like app colon nginx, and here you are specifying a app colon nginx one, that it is not going to work. So these two must be same. Okay, so this is for the service. Now when we have started the session means for the Kubernetes, I mentioned that we have a cube scheduler, right? So cube scheduler, is anyone has remember this? What is the responsibility of this cube scheduler?
Yes, sir.
Okay,
It's responsible for the container. I mean, putting the container in right port.
no, just mistaken one thing. Putting the pod to the right node. Okay, best
Port
suited
the
node.
right node.
Yes, not the container, because container is inside the pod. So kube scheduler is going to schedule the pod, and it check for the nodes who which node is best suited for that newly created pod. Okay, so it has it will just check for the best suited node, but in real scenario we have some different requirements, like we have an zones, or we have some region, like this some we have a different regions, like some is in uh, East Asia, or some is in South Asia, some is in US. So for like those services mostly required in the US. Okay, so you want to deploy those pods that has the region, that has the nodes has label region equal to US. Okay, so how you will define, like if you don't mention these things in the YAML file, your kube scheduler is going to just check for the best suited node. It is not going to check for where to, but if you want some control, that no, I just want this new pod to be created only on the nodes that has label environment equal prod or environment equal dev. So if you are testing something, you just want to schedule those pods on in that has a development nodes. Okay, you don't want to put it on the production nodes. Well, however, it means like these nodes are in the same cluster. Okay, the main concern is if it is in a different cluster, like in your architecture, it is like we have a different cluster for dev, different cluster for prod. Then yeah, that is not required. But let's assume we have a requirement for region. Like region, we have multiple one cluster, but the nodes are in different regions. Okay, and you want a pod to be scheduled on a node that has a label region equal to US or India or whatever. So it depends. So how we are going to control that thing means the I don't want this cube scheduler to be done used to put my uh, pods new pod to best suited node. Again it will check for the best suited if there are multiple label with the same multiple nodes with the same label. Okay, because it's not like we have only one node in the US, right? So I hope you guys understood what we are going to uh, do in the demo today. Okay, so any question? So first we will learn how to label the nodes, and then we are going to schedule pod in terms of labeling. Okay, how we are going to schedule a pod and some different nodes. So let's
So,
start with the
Sarabjit, like you
yes,
said, we this I mean, Cube Scheduler is responsible for putting the pods in right node, right?
yes,
So,
yes.
uh, so today's agenda will be like we would be deploying the pods in different nodes, irrespective of the environment, like you said, production, QA, and test. Like, I mean, what I mean, the concern which is there in my mind is like, can we? I mean, like the pods which are serving for QA,
Mhm.
and if I create a new pod that should be served in QA, and whether this cube scheduler will put in QA or it will put as per, I mean, it will put in production or
Yes,
somewhere else.
yes. So that we are going to understood today, because we are going to understand about just you can say surpass by we will bypass the cube scheduler. Okay, but it is not like we are bypassing, because there are if there is a QA environment, but there are multiple nodes in the QA that has a label QA, right? Environment equal to QA. So but it will first give preference to the label, like on which node I want to schedule it, this pod. Okay, so let's say we have a four nodes. Okay, we have total four nodes with environment with label environment equal QA. Okay, and we have another four nodes with label environment equal prod. Okay, so like in my case, I want to schedule my pods that has a label environment equal to QA, right? So first cube scheduler will check this part. Is there any node selector is given? So if it is a node selector is given, it will check for the nodes that has this label. Okay, but again it has four nodes that has the same labels. Then it will choose in those four nodes that in within among those four nodes, which one is the best suited. So again cube scheduler is going to work here, but it will first check for this one. Okay, so it is not going to deploy any pod on this four nodes that has a environment equal to production. So now I hope you get it right.
Yes.
Okay. So first what we are going to do is first we have to label the nodes, because right now we don't have nodes means we have three nodes, but there is no labeling on those nodes. Okay, so first we are going to label our nodes. So simply what we are going to choose here is we are going to go with this this environment. Okay, but just replace it with one, because I have one worker node and two worker nodes, and I am going to label those worker node with the environment one, with the environment QA, and another with the environment prod. Okay, so let's start with kubectl get nodes. So let before that I just want to confirm everything is ready. So status is ready, so all the nodes are reporting correctly. Okay, so uh, we can do one thing, kubectl get nodes hyphen hyphen show labels. Oops. Okay, so here actually it is mess. So here you can see labels. So some labels are actually default, means it is actually created when we just deploy the nodes. Okay, or add it to the cluster. So here this is the default one, like architecture and operating system, again architecture, host name. Okay, and node role. Okay, and the same thing with other one as well, but here there is no node role label over here because these are worker nodes. Okay, so now we are going to add label to our node. So I'm going to label 2c as a QA. So command is very simple, kubectl label node, and which node you want to label, and I want to label this one, and I want to give label environment equal to QA. Okay, and it is labeled. Let's go for the second one, kubectl label, and I want to label it environment equal prod. Okay, and let's see if there is any pods already running. So kubectl get pods. So these are the some pods that are those are already running. So we can do one thing, we can delete it. So check for the deployment first. So here is one, this one is deployment, this one is second one, this is the third one. So these are the four deployments that is behind behalf of these deployments, these pods are running. So if I delete these deployment, these pods will be deleted. So I will run kubectl remove, I think delete delete deployment nginx. Okay, it is deleted. And if I do get pods, now you can see here it is terminating. Okay, so we have just deleted the deployment, but it is going to terminate those pod because those pods are running in this deployment. Okay, and same thing is going to happen when we have a namespace. So if you delete the namespace, it is going to delete whatever the objects inside that namespace. Okay, it is going to delete everything. So if I just do once again, now there is no nginx pods running. Okay, so just check the others one. So we have another two. So let's try with kubectl delete deploy. This is the short form. So deploy, and I want to deploy delete these deployments, and let's try with if yeah. So we are able to delete multiple with the space. Okay, there is no deployments right now, and if we check for the pods, so it is still deploy terminating actually. It will take some time, but these two will not be deleted because these are this the things that there are some zombie uh, pods that is become, because it was, it was created when we have just edited our deployment. Okay, so it is not in that deployment that we have deleted, because when we have edited that deployment, it has created the new pods, and these pods are still running, but these are not part of that deployment. That's why it is still running. Okay, so now these pods cannot be deleted using deployment. So if I want to delete the pods again, commands are very simple. Just uh, kubectl what you want to do, and on which object you want to perform that action. So kubectl delete, and I want to delete pod. Okay, so now pod is deleted, and again if I have a multiple pods, I can use kubectl delete pod and the name with the space. So I can give one name and then space and another one. Okay, in that case we can delete multiple with the same in the same command. So uh, again let's delete the another one. So these are the actually basic things that you must understand, like how to delete the pods deployment, and what if we delete the deployments, what happens if we delete the namespace. Okay, so now if I check kubectl get pods, oops, so here what is happening, actually, you know, if we do get deployments, actually there is no deployments, but it becomes zombie means, now, due to the uh, self-healing capability, if I delete once again these two pods, it is going to again come up. So if I want to know, like, where it is means, which deployment you're using it means, who is deploying this node. So I just want to know more about this pod. So how I will do this? So we have a command is kubectl describe. So this is actually a powerful tool or command to investigate some more further. So I have this pod and I want to describe it. So it will give us some more information about this pod. So name is in the next deployment. Namespace is default. Priority is 0. It is running on 2C. Start date is 8 March, means today it is started once again, and app label is nginx for template hash, and then annotation status running controlled by, okay, replica set. Nginx deployment 57596. Hmm. This is a container ID. This is the image name using which that uh, the container is running, and this is the image ID, and it is started just now, ready to mounts, type volumes. So here you can see this node selector. Right now it is none. Okay, so we haven't given any node selector in this YAML file, means when we have created in the last session. But today we are going to learn this node selector. We are going to give it a node selector, so it will run on only on the nodes that have that will match that selector. Okay, so successfully assigned default engineer deployment.
So, Sarabjit, the
Yes,
node select over here is none.
yes,
So it gives like the Kubernetes. I mean, it gives the ability to Kubernetes to select the node. And the way we are doing today is the user will have that ability to select the node.
yes, right, right. So I'm not sure here, because if I just delete once again, it is going to recreate it. So let me try once again. kubectl get pods. So these pods will run continuously, and the problem is, the deployment is actually missing. So if I do kubectl get deployments, there is nothing. Okay, and if I do all namespaces, so this is the queue system deployment for core DNS, but using which deployment these pods are running, actually this becomes now zombie process. So we have to learn about how to delete these pods, because if I just delete it once again, it will recreate it. Okay, so if I again delete pods, so if I do it in the same command using space, so it is deleted. But if I again hit get pods, you can see now these the last string is changed. So the pod is newly created, so 5 seconds ago, but it is due to the self-healing capability. Okay, but yes, it has a replica set, and we need to check the replica set now. So if I do kubectl get replica set, so this is the replica set that is actually us again and again creating these two pods, because whenever we create a uh, deployment, there is a replica set that is created. So this is the replica set that is actually deploying this pods again and again. So if I delete it, it is going, this replica set is going to recreate these pods for me. Okay, because it thinks like we have given this replica set to desired state to 2, and current is 2. So when it goes to 0, it again try to recreate new pods. Okay, and it has that data. So if I want to check the um, details of this the replica set, I can do kubectl describe replica set. So here you will get some more information about it. So this is the name, and it is running in the default namespace. Selector is the same. Annotation. So we will learn about annotations as well. Not today, but in future sessions. So pod status to running to succeed. and this is the same image that is using. So now what we have to do is we have to delete this replica set. Okay, so first I need to delete the replica set, and again the command is same, kubectl delete, and I want to delete replica set. So here you can see the in the docker and the kubectl, the command is just we have to write this. If we are using docker, we have to write the object over here like docker and then node. Okay, and then the command what I want to do. But just in Kubernetes, it comes before, like kubectl, the CLI command, and then what I want to do means operation, and then on which object I want to do it operation. So just in Kubernetes, these two parts is just exchange. It is just replaced, means from here to here. So in docker, this part is in the second argument, and what I want to do is on the third argument. So just remember that one, because that becomes it is little bit confusing when we run the docker command and we are using Kubernetes as well. So kubectl delete replica set, and I want to delete this replica set. Okay, so it is deleted now. And now if I do get pods, got it? Any question how we are able to delete those pods, and how those pods are getting created again and again when I was just deleting it? So any question how it has been taken care?
No, sir. Okay.
Okay,
Nothing from
so
my side.
now uh, we have already given the name or label to the node. So just confirm it using kubectl get nodes, and so show labels. Okay, and the labels that I have created, it should be here. So here you can see this one, environment equal to qa, environment equal to pod. So 3c has environment equal to prod, and 2c has environment equal to qa. So now there is no pods, and that is running in the default namespace. So today, whatever the pods we are going to create is, and we are assigning it a namespace. So first I will create a namespace, kubectl create namespace, and I will say um, pod pod schedule. Okay, so this is the namespace, and whatever the pods we are going to create today, we are going to assign it in this namespace. Oops. So I cannot use that underscore. Instead, I can use this hyphen. Okay. So now we have created our own namespace, and if I want to check it, is it created or not? Simple kubectl get namespaces. So here is the default, and this one I think I have created AVC last time, and this is just created 15 seconds ago, pod schedule. Okay, so we have labeled the nodes, created namespace. Now we are going to create a pod. Okay, so I think till now there should not be any question, and let's go ahead and create a pod. So there is two things when we create a selector. So one is called node selector. Okay, and this is the simplest form to choose a selector, means to deploy a pod on a specific selector. a specific node. Sorry, so it's a node selector, and then we have a affinity group. So this is affinity, and it's affinity and anti affinity. So this one actually to learn these affinity and anti-affinity, it is little bit difficult to understand, but node selector is the simplest and easy to understand. So first I will show you using node selector, and then we will go to affinity and anti-affinity. And in affinity, again, we have two types that we will discuss. So first go with the node selector, and let me create. Is you can see better because it's a white space, because the putty has a black background and it becomes difficult to you guys. So simply I hope you guys remember. So what I am going to do is just copy some simple YAML file and I will discuss over here. So again, API version v1. So it is the API version, not the. It doesn't. Uh, there is no connection with the Kubernetes version and this API version, and it's a what API version we are using to communicate with the API server that it represents. Okay, and we are going to create a pod. So kind is a pod, and last session we have created a what we have created, that is deployment. Okay, kind was deployment. Here actually we are creating a pod only, so there should not be any deployment. Okay, so I cannot use the replica specification in this condition. Okay, because there is no replica set is created, right? So if something happens to this, no, this pod, there is no one is going to take care of it. Okay, if it is not working or it is not running, it will just not running. Now your Docker Kubernetes is not going to start it or try to do something with it, because it's a simple pod. Okay, so for high availability, we actually create a deployment, and we can give the replica set how many replicas that we need, or how many replicas we need. Okay, so one replicas there are, if we have three replica in one deployment, it is going to create a replica set. So now this is this very simple YAML file. So kind is pod, and metadata name I have given is nginx, let's say nginx pod, and label is environment test. Instead of it, I can write it QA. Okay, so this label is the match selector. It does not do with this node selector. Okay, and specification containers, what I need is nginx. So container name is nginx, and image is again the same nginx. Okay, so if you want to change it, you can, like I want to give nginx container, so it actually depends upon you. So let's give it a small name, and now I will give two space, and now I will write that node selector. Okay, node selector, and I want node selector. So again, whatever I am going to write, it should be given two spaces over here. Okay, so now I want node selector to be in environment should be QA. So this pod must be run on a node that has this label environment colon QA. So if it matches, then only your kube scheduler is going to schedule that pod on that node. Uh, okay, so before that, if you want to try it, like I will give a name that is not there is no any labels on the on any of the nodes. So let's try. Let's do it label that is test. Okay, and actually this and this is not interconnected, so if I don't provide some any different name, that is fine. It should not be same or something. So let's keep it qa again, but just I need a node selector environment should be test. Okay, and you know that there is a no node with this label, right? So what should happen if this type of scenario comes? Okay, so we are going to do is just create a YAML file. So vi, and I will name it again pod schedule. Okay, dot YAML, and I hope you guys are able to see this screen. So just I will copy paste.
Yes, sir.
Oops, here we have some issue. Okay, so we have to do some changes like so it should be in under the metadata, so I will give two space, and label also it should be in the uh, so again this label environment colon qa is under this label, so I have given two spaces again. And now this spec is actually a specification of your pod, right? So this is the part of metadata, and now we are giving the specification like which using which container this pod should run, and what is the image, what is the name of the container. So that is the specification of pod. So it should be come under, so it should be on the same line, this spec, and then whatever we are going to write is under this spec. So we have this container, and I want to give it a name that is nginx container, and again this hyphen means from here this is a list. So you have to manually, or for your own you have to learn about the YAML. I'm not going to uh, give you much detail about YAML in this session, because it will become and we are not able to cover the what we have the objective for this session. So just remember this hyphen means whatever over here after that hyphen is going to be a list. Okay, so you have to understand the list, what is how the list is, and because as I said in the earlier session that this is a YAML file, but when we run that kubectl, it is actually converted to JSON, and that call, the API call, it made using that JSON format. So the kubectl is going to provide the data in a JSON format to the API server. Okay, it is not in a YAML file. Okay, so there is a conversion is going on behind the scene that we don't know. So that's why we need this. So if you know the JSON, then you will easily understand the list how it is and why we need it, because right now you have that question why we need it. So you have to understand about the list in terms of JSON, then you can easily understand why we have written in like this. Okay, so now again this node selector is a specification of that pod, so I have to write it over here. It should not be under the containers because the container has nothing to do with this node selector. Okay, so now we have two spaces. Right now we know, like, there is a no label node with that label. So before that, just I will do one thing. I haven't given the namespace. Okay, so I can give that namespace over here. So in metadata you have to write that namespace. So I want to give namespace as what we have, pod schedule. Okay, so it will be created under that namespace. So just confirm there is no pods is running under namespace pod schedule. Okay, no resources. So to apply that YAML file, we have command kubectl apply, or we can use create as well, but here let's do with the apply. So kubectl apply hyphen f, and then the name of the YAML file, that is podschedule.yaml. Okay, so pod is created. Okay, and now if I run this, so you can see the status, it is in pending. Okay, so are you guys getting my point? Means why it is in the pending state? It is still in pending, right? So this pod is not going to deploy anymore because it has a label node selector that is not present. Means there is a no node that has that environment uh, label that has the environment test. Okay, because of that this no pod is going to just in the pending state, because that queue scheduler is searching for the node that has test uh, environment is test as a node, as a label, but there is a no node, so it will be in the pending state. Okay, so what we are going to do is just edit this file once again and change it to qa, sorry. Okay, and just apply it once again. So there is an issue. Pod updates more nodes, changes fields other than. Okay, so here what we can do is actually this. Uh, these are some specification that we cannot change in the YAML file, means we cannot apply it. Okay, so what we are going to do is just uh, delete the old one. Okay, and then we are going to apply it. So what we are going to do is kubectl get pods. So if I do this kubectl get pods, there is no resource because that pod is running under pod schedule namespace. Okay, by default. So if I just run this get pods, it is going to say output as a no resources found. So now we are going to delete this pod. So kubectl delete pod and nginx pod. Okay. Okay, again, so we got an error. So any of you can answer why we got this error? because I know we know like we have a pod, but it is saying no found, not found means pod with this name not found. So can you answer this? Why it is not means that pod is not why it is saying not found? Any guesses?
Because pod is not deployed yet.
Pod is actually created, but status is pending. Okay, means pod is there because when we run this command get pods, we have the output. Right. It means the pod is there, but still it is saying not found. So answer is here actually on the screen. Just you have to
Uh,
just
the container
concentrate.
has not been created within the pod.
No, that is not the case. So yes, if you say about the container, yeah, right. That container is not created because here you can see ready is 0/1. Okay,
Yes.
so container is not getting created on any of the node. So why we got this not found output is, if you don't give this namespace, it is going to search in the default namespace, right?
Okay.
So whenever you are doing this type of command, remember if it has a different namespace, you have to give that namespace as well. Okay, otherwise it is going to search in the default namespace.
Okay.
So in the this command I haven't given the namespace, so it is searching in the default namespace, and here you can see there is no pod in default namespace, right? That's why we got error. So now if I hit enter, it is going to delete it, right? So these errors is really helpful because when these errors comes up, then you realize, yes, where I have to search and what I am doing. Otherwise, if you got it first time, you are not going to understand why I am not getting that, why I am not able to delete it. Okay, so it's very useful. So now again, if I just scroll up and check the ports, there is no ports. Okay, so this time I have deleted the ports only, right? But there is no ports getting recreated, right? Why? Because we have deployed a pod only, not the deployment. Okay, if we have deployed a deployment, then if you delete the one pod, it is just in a few seconds that a new pod is going to create. Okay, that's why we have to delete the deployment, not the pods. Okay, so here we have created the pod, so we have deleted it. So now what we can do is just edit that pod schedule. Okay, so that is already edited. So now I am going to apply it. Let's say kubectl apply -f. So now it is created. Okay, and run that command get pods. Now you can see status is running. Okay, and if I do -o byte, means I want to see the output on which node this pod is running. So you can see 2c. Okay, it is not running on 3c, right? And here the question comes, like, there is only one pod that is running. So yes, it might be go over there. So kubectl get nodes, and this just want to confirm you that we have 2c with label environment qa, right? So what we are going to do is, if you have a question in your mind that this is the first pod that is just created in this cluster. Okay, so it is not confirmed like why it is on this 2c. So if I create a new pod again, right? So if we haven't specify any node selector, then it should go on the second one, right? On the second node that we have, that 3C. But here, if I just create a new pod, okay, just let me edit this file and give the different name, and other other things should be same. So just I will give a new name, that is pod 2. And now if I create it, it should actually go to the next one, next node, okay, next available node. And it should happen if we have not specified that node selector, but we have given the node selector. So what will happen, that's the next pod that we are going to create it. So kubectl apply -f pod. So again, this pod is also created, and if we check the nodes pods with the output byte, you can see again it is going to 2C, right? So now I hope you got the point what I want to convey you. So this is the how we select a node, okay? So if you have us, if you want to schedule a pod on a specific node, you can use it with the node selector, okay? So again, if I just apply it, it will create a new pod, and if I just output it again, it is going to 2C, right? So if I want to schedule it on the pod, anyone can help me where I should change it, means what I need to change in order to schedule this pod, a new pod, that is pod 4 on prod environment. So what I should change in this YAML file.
The node selector environment and
Yeah,
the label also.
uh, actually
No,
that is
label
needed.
is not.
That label is different. That is the label of the pod. Okay, so that label is for pod. So yes, in real scenario that should be changed, but here to show you that this label and this label is not related to each other, so I will just keep it QA. Okay, so just to show you, otherwise in real scenario you are going to change that label as well because that is not possible that pod is on in QA of pod you are running on the prod. Okay, so now we have a new pod YAML file, so just apply it. So pod 4 is also created, and if I know, now you can see this is created on 3C that has a label environment equal prod. So this is node selector that is done. So we have completed this node selector, and this is the simple one that I think you also think it is a simple one. Okay, the simple things that you have to mention at the end, that which on which node you want to uh, schedule that part. So again, let's check with the describe command and check any of. So now if I do kubectl describe pod, so in the last in the earlier commands, then when we have this use this describe pod, there was a node selector, but that was none. Okay, again you can see every time you have to give that namespace, or if you don't want to do that, we have one thing that is called context. So we can change that, and in that case you don't have to give this namespace again and again. Okay, so here we had that node selector. So this is the file started. So here you can see this node selectors. So we can actually give multiple node selectors, like we can give node multiple labels. Okay, so when we want to deploy a pods, we can also use a multiple selectors. Okay, so like we need a reason, the label of the nodes must be reason equal to US or India, and the environment must be QA. Okay, so it depends upon your requirement. So we can actually give multiple labels and multiple selectors while deploying our prod. Okay, so that thing you should try if you want. And let's go for the next one, that is affinity. Okay, so why we need this? We have a node selector, but why we need this affinity and anti-affinity, right? So you this question has an answer, like why we need affinity. So node selector is very easy and a simple constraint that we can give using node selector. Okay, with the particular labels and something. But you know uh, in real scenario, again, you have more type of constraint that you want to apply. So in that case you can use affinity. Okay, so we can actually do much like a language thing. Means we can use regex and we can apply that, and it is like a soft preference. Okay, in here in node selector we have a hard requirement, like the label must be environment equal QA. Okay, but in affinity we have some soft preference. uh, so if it doesn't satisfy, like in when we have created the first pod, we have like, if the label that environment equal to test was not there on any node, so it was in the pending state, right? But using affinity we can like give a preference, like I want to schedule it on a node that has a label this. But if it it doesn't find that label on any node, what should it do? Like it should create a pod or it should destroy it. Okay, so those preferences we can give, like, okay, I want this, but this is my preference. But yes, if it doesn't find, if you are the queue scheduler is not able to find that or not able to match that requirement, but still I want to run that uh, pod. Okay, so in that case we can give the preferences. So in node affinity, actually we can give two type of node affinity. So we have this node affinity, you can try say node affinity. Okay, and we have two types. First one is, so these things you have to understand, because this is really I think you are going to use it, or in real scenario it is necessary to use or while deploying a nodes. Okay, sorry, deploying the pods. So this is required during scheduling, ignored during execution. So can anyone understand this? Means with the name, because it little bit self-explanatory, but let's try to understand with the meaning what we have written, like so first one is require during scheduling. Okay, so it is actually required during scheduling, ignored during execution. Okay, so what does it mean actually? So require during scheduling. Okay, so when we have created a new pod, or we have applied using that YAML file, that queue scheduler will check at that time, means while scheduling. So when I will write require during scheduling, means when we have created a new pod, this is going to checked. It is necessary, means it is mandatory to uh, check this part required during scheduling. Like I need a node selector, environment equal prod, so required during scheduling. So when it is, the pod is going getting scheduled, at that time it must check that the node must have this environment equal to prod level. Okay, if it doesn't find, then no, don't schedule it, because it's written required during scheduling. Okay, so it is not going to schedule if the cube scheduler is doesn't have able to match this environment equal to prod. But the second part says ignored during execution. So why? Because it might be like I have changed this environment variable, okay, label of any node that has a prod, but I have changed it to qa. Okay, and if the label is environment equal to prod, there must be some pod running that this thing is written. Okay, so on the in the runtime environment, I have just changed this environment equal to prod to qa. So there are some pods that are running that has that has this affinity, that environment must be prod to run this pod. But since we have changed the label during the runtime, so if we have write like this ignore during execution, so once the pod is scheduled and then someone change the label of any node, then ignore it. Okay, so don't try to run it, search for the new node and schedule it on that node. Okay, just ignore it. If it is already running, then ignore it. Okay, so means you guys understood like what I want to share, what I want to say you, like
Yes, sir.
if you want to just repeat it so that I will understand you guys are getting correct or not, so I will explain once more. Just what you guys understood, just let me know, to say what is your understanding you with this line required during scheduling, ignored during execution. What is your understanding? Anyone? I'm actually asking to you guys.
You can repeat once again.
Okay. So required during scheduling, okay, means when you want to schedule a node or created a new node, okay, created a new pod. At that time, kube scheduler is going to put it on a best suited node or whatever you have mentioned in the YAML file, like node should be this or this. Okay, so in that case, if it is just a new pod, when it is scheduling, it should check for that requirement that you have written, like node label has environment equal to prod, but ignore during execution. So I have deploy a node. Okay, a node and pod. So I have deployed a pod that is already running, and while it was running on any node that has the label environment equal to prod. Okay, but I have changed the label of node from environment equal to prod to qa. Okay, so if we have written in our YAML file that pod should run on node that has a label environment equal to prod, but I have just changed the node label. So in that case, if I have choose this one required during scheduling but ignore during execution, so that pod will still run on that node. Okay, besides the we have
Yes, got it, got it. So
changed
basically
the
the font one, yeah, so basically what I understand is the first font is
node
applicable
selector.
to the new, I mean, to the new ports, not to the existing
Yes,
port. Yeah, yeah,
yes. So if you have mentioned this first one, then it will just check when your pod is getting deployed, and once it is deployed, then it will ignore the while execution. Means it is if the node label is changed when the pod is running, then it is just going to ignore it. That pod is going to run on the same node. Okay, and the second one is preferred during scheduling. So you have a preference like it should be run on this node, but if that node that requirement is not getting matched with any node in the cluster, in that case the queue scheduler is going to just um, check with the best suited node. Okay, and it is going to schedule it because we have just written preferred. So I have a preference, but yes, if it doesn't match, then just create this pod on any node, whatever the suited node is there available. Okay, and again the same thing, ignore during execution. So once it is deployed, then ignore. Okay, and again we have some more thing to discuss in node affinity. So let's try one pod. So we are going to create a pod with that node selector affinity. So I have already have one. Again I have a YAML file, so I'm just going to environment. Whatever.
Hello, sir. Hello, Sarbjit.
Yes.
So your screen is okay, okay. Now I can see. No problem.
Okay. Oh, I think it is just disconnected. Let me reconnect it. Mm, so this is the last thing that we are going to understand today. So we have again a pod, but not the pod. We have a deployment. Okay, so metadata is just name is preference, packet preference, and spec is replica. I want 5 replica template, and template metadata is label is app colon preference. So this is actually selector. Okay, so let me change it, and this is the spec of this template. Okay, so it should be under metadata. So sorry, template. So it should be over here 1 2 3 4. Okay, 1 2 3 4. Yes, 1 2 3. Oh, so 1 2 1 2. Yes, so yeah. So we have spec replica 5 template metadata of template 2 1 2 1 2. Okay. Then here we have given this affinity. Okay, so in under f spec we have to give this affinity spec, and I want node affinity. Node affinity means it will check for the node. So here we have preference during scheduling, ignore during execution. Okay, and what is my preference is to match the expression. Okay, so as I said, means and you cannot do it in node selector like match expression or something. Okay, that's why we need affinity. So we have a key, and key operator said what is the key. So I need a key that is environment, and operator is in. So if key is environment and value is uh, prod, let's say. Okay, so there we have just given node selector and then environment colon prod, but here we have to write it in a match expression. So key is environment, operator is in. So it will check this key, this prod value in the key. So key is environment and operator is in means, it's like a what's called mm, inside. So whatever the prod, it at least have a value of prod. So I have a label with a production, right? So this value is come inside that production, right? So this is matching actually these four alphabets in the value, in the values. So if I have a label with this let me write it to the next one. So I have a label with like environment equal to production. So it is written like production. So we are matching the expression key environment operator in, and if I just write prod, then again it is just check that yes, it is matching because prod and production, it comes under this production, right? So it is not like a hard coded, but we are giving the expression. So now go to the next one.
So for Abhijit, it will basically
Yes.
look for prod value, or I mean, if in case, as you said, if I put it, I mean the value if I put over here is production, and my environment is prod. So will it search for the entire string, or if it
Yeah.
match first
No, no, no,
four words?
no. That is the difference. So in actually it is in. Okay, so it should like if you have a label, node label with production, and you are giving the value prod, then it is right. But you have a value that is prod, label is prod in on the node, but value is production, then yeah, it is not going to work. So you
So
have to check
if
it,
I
and there are
remove
multiple operators actually.
yeah, yeah, if I remove the operator value, I mean both the key and value, if I remove that, so whether it will work like the
No, because we are matching the expression. So in that case, we need an operator. It should be equal, or so there are multiple operators that you can check in the YAML. So what are the
yeah,
operators we have?
so it
Okay.
don't have the wildcard search.
Yes. So we can do that. I will just show you that the production part and prod that will
No
work or
problem.
not. Okay,
Okay. Yeah.
we will do it. So before that, I just want to change the replica to 2 only, because we don't want multiple replicas. And here we are running busybox. Busybox. So we have given this sleep. Okay. Otherwise, it will just come up and stopped. So it will be in the terminating state. So I think everything looks good now, and I think container will come under spec, so it should be in line with this infinity. So this is the actually thing that you have to check before applying a YAML file. Okay, so I'll think everything looks good now. Let's copy and paste to the file. So again, I need to create a new one. So vi prod, or let's write it node affinity .yaml, and this is the problem. So what we can do is oh, oh. Okay, let me remove it. Rm. Okay, and create it once again, and using vi instead, I will use vim if it is available. Yes, let's try over here. Oops. Yeah, it is going to take time now. So instead of that, I will prefer to write the file. So yes, it is going to take some time. I will try my best to write it in a short term. So okay, so first one is API version. So yes, it is not necessary to use extension v1 beta. You can use that v1 as well. That is a stable one. Then kind is deployment. So when we are using kind deployment, we have uh, more specs to write. So that's why we are using that. The less one, we are using the kind equal to pod. So we are just creating the pod. Okay, and the spec is I need replicas to and template. So the metadata of now I am writing the metadata of template. Okay, not the deployment. So metadata, and this template has the label. So while writing the label of that template, this 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 metadata, template metadata, and what we write over here under this deployment metadata of the match selector, at that time that must be match. Okay, so we haven't actually give any match selector, so that's okay. Given the same label, and now the specs is of this template. Okay, we are not writing the spec of deployment. Actually, we are writing that spec of this template. Okay, so spec, again, what we need is I need this to be affinity. I have a spec that is called affinity spec, and Let me just do it side by side. Okay. So in Affinity, I want it to be node Affinity. So it will check for the node, and yes, you can or you have a different affinity as well. But yes, we cannot cover the every affinity. You have to go to the Kubernetes and check what other affinity we have. Ignored. Okay, and now we have this preference, and what is the preference is match expressions. So here if I change that prefer during scheduling to required during scheduling, then again, oh, match expression, so it should be start from here actually. Key environment and operator is n, and the values are is fraud. Okay, and now I have to write the specs of the container, so it should be under this affinity. So 1 2 3 4 5 6. So containers, and we have multiple arguments that we want to pass, so it should be in the list. So argument, first argument is sleep, and how much. So we have given that 3600, so 1 hour it will be, and at the
For
end we have to give. Yes.
this 5 times 9, we can put. I mean, after sleep, the way we define the values.
Yeah,
I mean,
first we can give the image name, that I think, right? That you have a question that we can give the name first, and
yeah,
then
yeah.
the.
That is no, yeah, no. What I'm talking about is like the argument which we passed for sleep. Okay,
Mhm, mhm,
so you gave a dash, like you gave a list,
mhm,
right? So,
mhm.
I mean, you have given two values. One is sleep, and the other is the 3600.
Yes,
So
yes.
can't we put it in the way like list sleep colon 3600?
Yeah, yeah. That those things are actually, you have to. These things are sub uh,
YAML.
pre-configured. Means you have to write it like this. Okay, we
Okay.
cannot do. But yes, the answer why, that I also cannot give you that answer why, because I'm also in the early learning of this YAML. So I'm more in the Kubernetes. I haven't much knowledge about the YAML. So I have tried to learn those these hyphens list, but again I didn't get much detail on the on Google. So I
Okay, sir.
think, like,
No problem.
if we check with the JSON, what it how it is, how it works, list works in the JSON, then yes, right, then we can understand, and I will try to figure it out, and I will tell you in the coming sessions. Okay.
Okay, no problem.
So name, we can give any name. Okay, so I hope there should not be any error typo because and to find out where is the problem, it is really takes time. So yeah, so now the command is again, I just missed one thing. Like I said, everything today whatever we are doing, it should be in a same namespace. So just I want to give it a name. I want to put it in a namespace, and that is pod schedule. Okay, now let's apply the file. Okay, so we have a pausing error and converting YAML to JSON. So here you can see error converting YAML to JSON. So actually in the background there is a
Yes,
conversion is
yes.
going on for from YAML to JSON. Okay, and it said line 21 did not find expected key. Okay, so we have to check the 21. So 21st with 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10 11 12 13 14 17 18 19 20 21. Hmm. So it doesn't find this key prod, and actually I was thinking about this because values should be in oh, values. Hmm. So we have this key operator, then values. Yes, one two values. Okay. Yes. Actually, I missed one thing, that is weight. So over here is preferred during schedule. I thought that weight is optional, but not. Okay. So it is like if you have worked on the any groups like firewall, okay, or NSG group, that is network security groups on Azure. So there is a weight, or somewhere if there are multiple things, we have a weight like which one is more weighted. Okay, so in that case we provide, if there are multiple preferences I have given, okay, so we have to give a weight which one should take it first. Okay, which preference the cube scheduler check first. Okay, so we have that weight, and it depends upon you, the name number. Okay, so the lowest number is the higher preference. That is I think a global thing. So now we have given this weight, and that's why this again has a list. So that's why that it is unable to convert it to the JSON, because we need list over here. So weight preferences, then match expression, key operator, value prod. Okay, so now I think It looks good now. So let's try again. This now we have error on the 22nd. So containers. Okay. So it should be over here. So if we use Nginx, then this argument is not required. But I just want to tell you that we have, if we are using busybox, we need to give this sleep, and we have also seen this issue in the last session when we have created deployment, but it was in a loop crash loop back, something like this. Okay,
Yes.
the state is crash loop back. So it was just creating a new container, and because it is in exit state, just created and exited, and it was going on. So it has a crash loop. So we to avoid that, we have to use the sleep. Okay, so it will run for 1 hour at least. Okay, so now I think everything looks good. Let's try it. Oops. So this is the problem that I was talking about, that writing a YAML file is really means, I have directly writing over here, but we need at least any IDE to write these YAML files to avoid these simple problems or space issue. So here is actually a error validating nodeAffinity, error validating data validation error on deployment dot spec. So unknown field spec. Okay. So let's check once more time. So deployment dot spec. So here we have a deployment replicas template. Okay, and spec over here. 1212. Well, mostly we use a sample deployment YAML file, so that there should not be these type of errors. That is actually not I'm just going to take some time to troubleshoot it. And uh, for here, what I can do is just change it from deployment to pod simple. Okay, and just remove it, because right now we don't have that much time to just figure it out. So let's just I'm just changing this kind to pod, and if I am using kind pod, then metadata is right, and namespace is correct. This we don't need this replicas. Okay, and actually we don't need this whole part, and this is for deployment, so we don't need it. We directly need the spec. So this is app preferences not required. Okay, so this is the spec of pod, and I have this affinity, and then nodeAffinity. So this is correct, and now let's I am not going to do it 2 times, so just let's change this to required. So I will just change this prod value, and you can see what happens. Okay, because if I write it preference, then the pod is going to deploy, right? So I don't want to do it two times. I just mm, okay, I have one more issue. Preference match expression. Okay, so required during scheduling, ignore during execution. Then I change it to mm, during. So if I change to from require preference to required, we have to make some changes over here, because this wait is not longer required, because wait is only for the preference, because we have multiple preferences, right? But if it is something that is required, then yes, we don't need multiple multiple preferences. We have only one, so we don't need this. We are just going to check the expression. So node selector terms, and I am going to select the node okay, and key will come over here, key environment, and then operator values, and this is the value, and this container will come under this affinity. So 1 2, and then argument, then okay. So let's try. I hope it worked this time. No matches for kind pod and unable to recognize node affinity. No matches for kind pod. Hmm? No matches for kind pod. Oops. So if I am using this extension, okay. So in that case, that API version is not supported with the pod. Okay. Required scheduling. So there is a typo, because it should be caps D. Values, values. This is small. Oh, what is the problem now? Validation. Unknown field values. Why? Before, during. Node affinity required, node selector terms, match key, match expression, then key values. Okay, I think I have to troubleshoot it offline. Okay, so yeah, we will continue it on the next session from here, because I'm also not able to understand why it is not working, because everything looks good from my side. Okay, I'm not able to find it the problem where it is. So any question till now what we have done? I will just check it offline and then I will show you in the next session. Okay.
Okay, Darwin, no
Okay.
problem.
So no question, right? You got the uh, things that I want to show you. Like the main thing is node selector and affinity. So if you understand these terms, then yes, you can actually, when you see the things in the real scenario, you will at least understand why it is, and what does it mean. Okay. So again, here again, there might be some little silly mistakes like a space or something, but yes, if I try to figure it out over here, then it will take some time, and it's already 4:17. Okay, so we will end up this session over here, and we will troubleshoot in the next session. Okay.
Okay,
Okay.
Darwin.
So,
Yep.
thank you very
Thank
much.
you. Bye
Okay,
bye.
thank you. Bye.